Once again, it is a Friday afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. Every week, well, not every week, most weeks, many weeks on Friday afternoon, I go live to invite you into my studio. My name is Steve Thomason. I am a visual artist. I'm an illustrator, animator. I'm a pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and I'm a professor at Luther Seminary. And at the Art Pastor, it is my mission, my goal to explore spirituality and scripture through visual art and creativity so that together we can grow deeper in the love of God through Jesus Christ in the power of the Holy Spirit for the sake of the world. And I like to end my week whenever possible going live with you to invite you into my studio. So I am a working artist and I have a fun project to share with you today. I'm working on a project 3 weeks ago on my live stream. I walked through this Bible study that I'm illustrating on Jeremiah. And so today we're going to continue working on that. And I'm not going to do the Bible study part of it as much as I'm just going to do some drawing. So I got the green light to go ahead and finish up the artwork on this. And so we're going to be exploring a program called Clip Studio Paint. So I'm switching over here to my working studio where you can see I've got my over the shoulder cam down here in the right, so you can see my hand moving. I'm trying to give the most real estate to the actual program itself. So I'm working on a Wacom Cintiq 16-inch, and I'm in Procreate. So I'm going to go ahead and just pause the music for just a moment and just kind of give you a lay of the land of where I'm at and what I'm doing. So if you're live with me during this stream, feel free to leave a question or a comment in the chat, and I'll look up periodically. Hopefully I will be able to respond to your question and comments. Today's really going to be an art session. I'm going to be drawing, but just let me give you some context. I'm really enjoying this program called Clip Studio Paint, and it's I believe it's a company that started in Japan, and it really caters to the manga artist, and it is very much like Photoshop. If you're familiar with Adobe Photoshop, which I love Photoshop and I use Photoshop all the time, but Clip Studio Paint has the features of Photoshop, but it really leans itself toward creating comic books. And so one of the things that I really love about it is that it has the page feature built right in, like it's the default mode. So you can see here I'm working on a multi-page document, and it's really easy to create the panels and the text boxes on your page layout. Super fun. Um, so I've got this 4-page Bible study. So just give me context of what I'm working on. I've got this Bible study that I'm creating for Luther Seminary on Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. And I just want to, it's a really popular, well-known verse that often gets taken out of context. And so we thought it would be really important to put this verse in context. And it is a verse written by a prophet named Jeremiah. And just a super quick outline, you can see how this is page 1. Page 2, click on here. I've got Jeremiah in context, where Jeremiah fits in the Bible bookshelf, where Jeremiah fits in the geography of the story, and in the timeline, and the different kings that Jeremiah was speaking to. And so if you are interested in the actual Bible study itself, I invite you to go to Art Pastor Live website or playlist on YouTube, and you can watch where I actually walk through the whole thing. But this today, I just want to draw. It's been a long, intense week. Let me close my, get a little bit of the glare off my head. It's been kind of an intense week for me, and probably maybe for you. If you're watching this video later in the week, I hope you enjoy. But I'm just going to turn on my chill music. I've got a nice playlist going, and I'm going to draw. and I will tell you a little bit about what I'm doing, but sometimes when I'm in the mode of drawing, uh, I get lost in it, and so just enjoy the process. But I will tell you about the tools and stuff that I'm using. So the basic layout here, you can see I'm on these pages. I don't really need to have this pages frame open, so I want to have as much real estate on the page as I can. And this is what we would call an establishing shot, perhaps, where I want to draw Jeremiah looking over the shoulder. So if I press my space bar, it turns into the hand, and I can just move the page anywhere I want. And then in Clip Studio Paint, there's a nice way. Right over here is this navigator, it's called, and you can move your viewfinder around, and then you can. This is just an easy way to zoom in and navigate around the page. That's a little too tight for what I want to do. So I'm right here. I'm just going to be working on this panel. And the cool thing about the way Clip Studio works is that you've got, oh, Heidi says hi. Hi, Heidi. Thanks for joining in. I hope you enjoy this live stream. It's great to see you. Okay. So here's how it works. You've got, just like Photoshop, you've got multiple layers that you work with. So you've got your layers panel open over here. And each panel on the page becomes this little enclosed layer into itself. And so the cool thing about it is it creates all the clipping masks and containers automatically. And you can do all this in Photoshop, but Clip Studio Paint is designed to just do the work for you. And so right here is the layer, and everything that happens between this frame up here and this frame background here will happen inside the frame layer, which is really cool. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to create a new layer. Come up here and just hit new layer, and then I'm going to press B for brush, and I'll just take just a round watercolor brush, just randomly, and you've got your color wheel down here. I'm just going to choose a color wheel, and notice, you know, when I paint here, it's all inside. That makes sense. But notice what happens when I go over here, it automatically cuts off. So you can paint inside your box without worrying about going over the lines. And that's it's called a clipping mask, but it does that automatically just simply because you created this layer inside the sandwich, if you will, of the frame container and the frame background. And so anything, I can create multiple layers, so this becomes its own little world inside the frame. That's one of the cool things about storytelling inside of comic books, is that you're just telling a story inside the frame. So let's delete that one. So I'll hit the delete. And what I've got going so far is I have this really rough layout where we've got Jeremiah writing a letter, and it's super, super rough. And so what I want to do first is I'm going to actually take the opacity of this layer down even further to where we can barely see it. And then I'm going to come up here to what I'm calling a sketch layer, and I'm going to get a little bit more refined with my drawing. And on my chair, I have my armrest up too high on my chair, which makes it hard for me to have full range of motion in my arm. So I gotta get that layer down. Okay. If I come over here to my pencil, to my brush, you've got three different kinds of brush layers. And this one is pencil. And I have imported a Photoshop brush into Clip Studio Paint because, of course, I started with Photoshop. And there's an artist named Kyle Webster who creates these amazing brushes. And I really, really like a brush that he made called Animator's Pencil. So I'm choosing that, and I want to come down here and make it black. And let me see how big my pencil is. I'll hit Command Z to undo that. And I think that's a good size. So now if I come over here, now I want to refine my drawing just a little bit. And so whenever I'm drawing a human, let me see, I want to make this brush a little bit bigger and a little bit more gray. Let's see. So even though this is a cartoon, I still care about structure, right? So if I draw, I want to imagine that cranial mass, and I have the center line of his head coming like this, and his eye socket would be right here, and his nose is going to be like right there. Eyebrows. So his actual face would look maybe something like that. And then his ear, got to get a little 3/4 because they're kind of looking down on his ear. Of course, everybody's ears are different, but actually his ear is probably going to be covered by hair, but that's all right. But I have this preconceived, like, I don't know why, but I just feel like prophets of Hebrew prophets have big beards. I don't know why. We just kind of feel that way about them. And so he's looking at his hand, so his eyelids are going to be down like that. All right. Before I get into the beard, I just want to feel like where his neck would be. This is a cartoon, not a accurate portrait, so we can exaggerate the size of his skull. His skull is a lot smaller than reality, and that's okay. But his temple hair would come right here. So I'm going to let that fall down. Shoulder, let's see, his shoulder would be like that. So you've got the spinal cord that kind of curves. So when you're drawing the neck, you've got the spinal cord that comes down, then you've got these two big muscles that come along the back. And so in order to make the drapery look believable, you've got to have it come across the back of the neck like that. And then his shoulder is going to be like this. And so you have to imagine this foreshortening of his shoulder, his arm coming down, and then I want his hand up here because he's writing. And I have my own hand here, so I kind of have a reference of when I look at. So, you know, when you're drawing a hand, hands are really complex, right? So you've got like 4 bones that come up here to these knuckles. And then you've got the thumb. And then each finger has 3 joints to it. But these are foreshortened like that. So when you're drawing the hand, you just got to kind of think through the anatomy of it. And everybody's hands look different. And I think actually this would go more down like that. And his curl quill pen come kind of like that. Is that right? You know, when I look at that, that's actually don't like that very much. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up here to my select tool, and I'm going to choose lasso. And I'm going to do that, and then in Clip Studio Paint, you can just hit delete. This little, it's like a poof, vanish button. And then you go ahead and click this, and it removes that. And I actually think you can also just choose your eraser. And I've got a kneaded eraser up. So if I hit the bracket, right bracket button, it'll increase the size. Daniel, always worth watching and listening to you. Great to be sitting under your insightful lectures. Hey, TT Daniel, thanks for watching, man. Yeah, I'm just having fun drawing today. So if I come back over here and hit P, if I hit P a couple times, it will toggle through the different pencil brushes. So this is just back to my pencil, animator pencil. So yeah, so this is a good example of how sketches are rough because you want to play with them. And I feel like, let me come down here to my rough layout, and maybe yeah, so if I hit E, and if I erase it on my rough layout, maybe I can play with that a little differently. Because if he's, oh, I remember why I put this to the right, because Hebrew goes from right to left. But we are writing in English, and this is for English writers. So we're going to suspend that part of it. I'm just wondering what would happen if I put his hand over here. Because I'm just wondering what would look better for the composition. If I want his crow quill pen to be up like that, and the letter to be right there, does that make sense? Or is it better for me? See, I could see if I'm writing, though, when I think about how I write, my shoulder is down here and my hand would be right here. And so let's erase this. And I do want you to see his hand. So maybe what needs to happen is my letter actually needs to get a little bit bigger and come down here like that. And then I could have his hand right here. Yeah, I think that feels more natural. And then the letter can be more dominant there. And this is going to be kind of a little side frame. Okay. Yeah, I think I like that better. So let me come back up here to my sketch, and we're going to zoom in and then see what happens if I make that pencil a little smaller. Just let that pen come like that. Maybe it'll just go over his shoulder like that, just a little bit. Yeah. Give him some. Since this is hair, now I can just erase this part. Like, that doesn't matter anymore because it's totally covered up. But the fact that we drew it gives the believability. Oh, thanks, Heidi. Much better, you said. Oh, great. Thanks. Going a little crazy over here. So I will go to my pencil. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so now, and then just kind of indicate a seam or something and let his clothing fall down. And then we can see that his letter, now of course this is exaggerated, the size of this letter and that it's upright like this for the purpose of illustrating to the reader that we're talking about a letter. So obviously, you know, he's probably wouldn't write a parchment this big. Yeah, let's do that. And so then this right up here, from Jeremiah to the exiles, I think I'm going to handwrite that to give it a little better, to make it feel, it'll just look cooler, I think. So there's a sketch. And then I'm also, just for fun, I'm going to draw, no, I'm not going to put it on a platform. I'm going to have a hanging oil lantern. Actually, it probably needs to come like this. And whoops. And like this. And then this flame will become a source of light. And then I'll do a fun thing with it, with him backlit. So I'll do a bunch of stuff with the shading to backlight that. So that'll be cool. All right, so with that sketch done, now I can go ahead and take a drink of water. If I take the sketch layer, I can go ahead and just totally, I didn't delete, but I clicked the eyeball and made the rough sketch layer invisible. And now if I take the sketch layer and come up here and bring its opacity way down, like this is all the way down to like 13%. If I make a new layer, and I'm going to go ahead and name this one ink. So I just double clicked on it and I typed in the word ink. And now I can come up here to my inking brushes. It's called a pen, and it's called a Real G pen. And I found that I like inking with the Real G pen. So I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to start up here just to kind of get loosened up. Hey, let me know if the music's okay, all right? If it's loud enough or too loud. And let's see. So now that I'm inking, what I care about is making nice, smooth, clean lines. And so I do a lighter line to show edges. I'm gonna make a, so this is the hole in the ceramic oil lamp. that. And I want to just do some contour lines just around the shape of it so you can kind of feel it's three-dimensional. Like that. Come around. I'm going to put a little handle on it. So this light line will be like the top of the handle. So, you see you've got this top layer that's going to catch the light. And then I'm going to do a thicker line under here. Actually throw some shadow in there. And then I have to imagine that my hanging ropes are coming around this side. And let's just make it decorative. Maybe have like a little tassel or something that's hanging from it. Okay, there we go. So we just inked the lamp. That's kind of fun. So I typically go. Heidi said the music is okay. Excellent. Hey, I'm so glad you're watching, Heidi. It's very cool. So I have this practice of, since I'm right-handed, I like to ink from upper left to lower right. And there's two reasons for that. One is back in the old days when I would actually ink with real ink in a brush on paper, you don't want to slide your hand across wet ink. So you always want to work from upper left to lower right if you're right-handed, opposite if you're left-handed. But also you can see what you've done if you work this way because your hand covers what you're looking at. So even in digital art, it still works better that way for me. So, but there are times when it doesn't work that way. So I'm just going to when you're drawing hair, you want to have a loose brush stroke. And then you can fill in the shapes with your color later. Now notice, I come down here, this feather is going to overlap. So I need to stop my hairlines and I need to draw the feather first because it's in front of the hair, and I need to make sure that my lines don't intersect incorrectly. So I'm going to go ahead and do this feather like that. It's going to come down into the stem of the feather, the shaft of it, like that. So now I know where to start and stop my hairlines. And my shoulder lines. So when I'm inking something like this, I don't want to just do one solid line, because whenever you have one solid line, that shows a flat surface. And since this is actually this is a rounded, voluminous surface of the shoulder, and so I actually want my contour lines to kind of indicate that. See how just that little bit of breaking up the line allows the eye to believe that there's maybe some volume there. And then I'll come in with some lines like that. And then let's see. Yeah, okay, there we go. And some hair, and then let's let his hair. So see, his hair is dropping in front of his shoulder here, and then is draping over his shoulder and down his back a little bit over here. Let's go ahead and do the face. So you've got this 3/4 angle, you've got a lot of overlap. Just give a little indication of volume on his nose. And I'll do more of the shading there. And if you're going to do it in color, you can actually, you don't have to be quite as, oh my goodness. Haha. Hold on, that's my dog going crazy. That's live TV, folks. You know it. Somebody came in upstairs and there's nothing you can do about it. All right. That was exciting. I think my heart rate just went up. All right. So now we're going to get his hand. So you've got this muscle in your hand right here. And so when you're drawing knuckles and tendons, it's kind of tricky. Hands are really complex. So you want to kind of indicate where the knuckles are. But you don't want to get too crazy about it. Then the fatty pad that goes underneath. And then these fingers are tucked under. And then this finger, this knuckle comes around. And then it's going to be gripping onto the pen like that. And that's just drawing a hand from memory, not really looking at a resource. So it may or may not be that good. But okay, so there's the basic outline of the person. Now this is parchment paper kind of thing, so I'm just going to freehand this line to right here. Like that. There are times where freehand lines are the right choice, and times when a nice clean machine line is the right choice. But I think, you know, when you're drawing something organic, like, you know, an ancient prophet writing on a parchment, you probably want to have kind of more organic hand-drawn lines. Okay, so now I have my ink layer, boom, boom, like that, and so I can turn off my sketch layer. I don't want to ever delete it because I might need to come back to it at some point. So now what I want to do is I want to create what's called flats. So you want it to put in solid colors to indicate basic color shapes. So the first solid color is, I'm going to do the parchment. So I come underneath the ink layer, so I click on the sketch, and if I hit new layer, then this one I'm just going to call parchment. Parchment flat, just to be crystal clear for myself. And then if I choose this color wheel, I'm going to just come up here into kind of a light beige color. And then my pen, if I come to, let's see, what is the best pen? Marker, felt pen, flat marker. No, I think I want the turnip, no, paintbrush. Yeah. So I'm still learning. still learning. Yeah, I think this is the one I want. Still learning Clip Studio Paint. I know the brushes in Photoshop pretty well, brushes that I like. But I just started using Clip Studio Paint and trying to figure out what's the best one. So all I'm trying to accomplish with this is creating a solid, flat area of color. And one way you can do it is actually using the lasso tool and outlining your shape and then just filling it. And that's a totally legitimate way to do it. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. I want to come up here and choose Paint Bucket and just fill that in. And notice, because there's an edge, like a fuzzy edge to that brush, which did I use? Thick pen. Yeah, I used thick paint, paint and apply. Yeah. So I have to come back and just put this in. Cover that up. Anybody who's watching this and is an expert in Clip Studio Paint, you can help me tell me which is a better brush to use for this. So now I have my solid color paint, and something that I want to do also is I want to create a new layer that is the background color, and I want to make it I'm eventually going to make this really dark, but for right now I just want to put it in here for like that. So it's light enough that I can still see my ink lines, and that's showing that my ink lines might not be. Yeah, they're fine. Okay. So that's parchment flat. Now I'm going to make a new layer and do figure flat, figure how do you spell figure? Figure flat. I think I spelled that wrong. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do with this figure is just I use a really neutral kind of a neutral flesh tone. There we go. To do the entire figure. And I don't really care about the colors right now. I just want to get the block colors in, or this is like back in the old days when you're doing airbrush art. This is like cutting Frisket if you ever did airbrush, and this creates the sharp edges of the shape. Just around the edges like that. And by pulling this across, I create a closed system, and then I can just see, by double clicking, I actually can fill in some of those gaps. I need brush. There it is. If I hit B, then I go to my brush. E was taking me to the pens and pencils. B takes you to your brush. We hit E and just, whoops, it's too big. Let me make my marker, my eraser a little smaller. I can just clean up those edges. Oh man, that's bad. Clean up these edges just a little bit. All right. So that's my figure flat. And then I'm going to create the hand and brush, hand and pen on a different layer so that I can have some overlap. So let's go ahead and make a new layer. I'll just call this pen flat. And then I'll just go ahead and use the same color for this, and you'll see why in just a minute. So if I hit B, it takes me back to my brush, and it remembers the last brush I was on. So I'm going to do this for this color for the hand. Sometimes if it's a small enough area, it's just as fast to make your brush a little bit bigger and just fill it in. Isn't it interesting how much darker it looks here when it's against a light background than it does here when it's against a dark background? There's color theory for you. Okay, so now since I have this brush, which is very different, I'm going to go ahead and make a lighter color. Not pure white, because you don't ever want to go pure white too fast, because you want to save that for your highlights. Because all I'm doing right now is just blocking in flat color like that. Make that a little bit bigger. Boom. That. Brush a little smaller. And I go ahead and make this dark. Because I mean, there are times when you just know that the area is a specific color and that's what you want it to be in the end. So why not just go ahead and make it that way? But this is a blending brush, so I can go ahead and see how it's kind of blending into the black and the white. And now if I hit Alt, or if I hit Option, I can choose this color and then kind of blend it back into that color. So yeah, we play around with the blending. So now I have this, I have that blocked out. And the last flat that I want to do is up here. I'm going to call this lamp flat. Boom. And so on this one, I can go ahead and I'll choose this color, but make it a little bit more yellow. Hit B for brush. Bring my brush size way back down. And I can go ahead and just color right over those chords, because I'll come back and get those in a minute. Get that brush a little bit bigger. Let's just fill this all in with flat color. Then I want to make this chord, let's make this chord maybe a red-ish color. That'd be kind of fun. Just for a little variety. Visual interest, if you will. I'm enjoying this grace. Thanks, Verdi. All right. All right, so let's zoom out and see what we've got. So now we've got these flat colors, which looks pretty boring. admittedly. So next layer is, if I come to the figure flat, there's a trick up here called locking transparency. If I lock the transparency, then now it will only allow me to paint on pixels that have color in it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit option and choose this color, but then come down here to a really dark brown. And oops. Yeah, paint and apply. But notice what happens if I make this brush really big, but if I paint over here, it only paints inside of the area that I've already colored. And that's why we do the big single block color first. Because now I can put in a secondary layer of solid color pretty quickly. Because I've defined my edges. And I can put these colors in. Let me zoom in a little bit. What are we doing on time? 4:47. And then I will go ahead and make the color of his tunic different than his skin color. And again, I can just color that wildly. Because I have my transparency locked. Already cut my frisket, if you will. All right, so let's zoom out. Okay, so now we've got flat colors going. And what we want to do now is, I think I want to go ahead and make my background darker. So I hit command, I commit option and choose that color. And let's see what happens if I click there. Yeah, I think that's good. And now I want to choose an airbrush. So I got a soft airbrush, and I'm going to go a little darker, and maybe with some dark red. And I just want to put just a little bit of color in the background. And I want to make my shadows a warmer shadow, just for variety, like that. Okay. Now, I want to do a little shading. And so the way I'm going to do shading is, if I take my figure flat, if I make a layer above it, and then right here, oh, and I can't remember, how do I, oh yeah, here we go. If I click this, it's a clipping layer, clip to layer below. So if it has this red line, it will, whatever I paint on this layer, it will stay within the boundaries of the layer below it. So it's kind of like lock transparency, but I don't do any damage. So anything I do on this layer will not change the layer below it, but it's clipped to that layer. And so that's pretty cool. And then I also want to choose multiply as the blend mode. And so this is going to be the shadow of my figure. So I'm going to use this airbrush, make it softer. And here's the cool thing about multiply. Notice what happens when I chose the same color as the clothing, but because it's on the multiply mode, it's actually making it darker. So that's a really great way to do shading. And the more I add to it, the more it multiplies and makes it darker. So now I'm going to do a little shading on the skin. I'm going to choose this mode, and I'm going to, oh, it's not, oh, remember I did my my pen on a different layer. So, and the pen and the hand are connected. So I need to make a new layer. I need to clip it, go to multiply, and now I can do that. There we go. So it's just a general shading, just super simple. And then if I come back here to my shadow for the figure, I can come in here and I can create some shadow. And I do want to get a little bit of, like, the darkest shadow is going to be right in here. And underneath. Like that. Something that I'm noticing is that my ink lines don't seem very black to me. So I'm going to come up here to my ink, and I'm going to hit the lock transparency. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make sure I'm choosing ultra black. And sure enough, I was not inking in real black. It makes a huge difference. And so I definitely want and I might find that I can change that later. Right now I want it to be black. It's interesting why I wasn't in black before. I definitely want these lines to be in black. But later, that's actually how you can soften your lines. Does Photoshop have similar feature to the transparency? Heidi. Yeah, Photoshop does have lock transparency. Definitely. Like all of these features, Heidi, these are Photoshop features too, where you can lock the transparency on a layer, and then you can create clipping masks. And you can create layers of clipping masks, and I'll show you that in just a second on how you're going to do the highlights. I'll do that right now. Actually, first let's come back down here to shadow, because I want to throw some shadows onto the hair. I'm going to have some dark shadows under here. And now I'm going to be doing, this is going to be my light source right here in just a second. So I'm going to be, I want to start modeling the hair just a little bit. So this is going to be really dark down here because it's coming behind the shoulder. I'm going to have a little bit of subtlety in the shadows, like that. And I'm leaving it a little lighter on the top as the light wraps around it. And now that I've gotten really dark here, I can come back to the the clothing, and I can actually make this a lot darker now. Make my brush bigger, because his head is actually going to be throwing shadow across his body like that. Now I've gotten to the limit of my darkness, so I can actually come a little darker, and if I choose a darker color, it will go darker. But you always want to start with the color that you're shading. And now notice here, if I take and turn this off, the under layer is safe, which is really cool. Turn it back on, I've got shadow. So now I'm going to put my light source in. So I'm going to come up here to the lamp, and I'm going to go above the ink. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call this flame. And I'm going to choose a nice bright orange and just get in here with my airbrush. And I'm going to just want to put just a little flame in there to start. Let's throw some yellows in it. Again, this is just airbrush. So that's my flame, my light source. And now what I want to do is I want to do shading underneath the lamp. And so I'm going to go back to, choose this color, and oh, I got to make it multiply. See how, watch what happens when I do that. See, it takes that and makes it darker. So I want to come make my brush bigger. So now I'm going to imagine that if this is my light source and this is a curved object, then it's going to be darker on this side. It's going to be catching the light over there, and I'm going to go a little darker because this is going to be my biggest source of biggest area of shadow right here, like that. And there's going to be shadow on that side, and there's going to be shadow underneath this. There's going to be a lot of shadow under here. And on these little ropes, there'll be shadow on this side, but the light's hitting it from there. So there's just basic shadow. It's pretty quick, right? Pretty simple. And so now I'm going to show you how I'm going to do some lighting on the figure. So if I come down here to the figure, and if I go above the shadow, hit another layer and make that clipping, it's going to also clip. It's not going to clip to this one. It's going to go through and clip to whatever is directly below the bottom clipping. And if I take this one and make it overlay, and then go to the color of my light, then I can start putting in rim lighting like that, which I think is pretty cool. Now notice it's brighter on lighter colors, and since this is a really dark hair, I'm gonna have to do a different model for that. I'm gonna have to go lighter for one thing. So I want to hit a little bit on top. And overlay doesn't work as well for dark color. So what you have to do for that is you have to actually come up and hit another clipping mask. And this one I'm going to do normal, make my airbrush really small, and I want it to be this yellow color. So I really need to hit that airbrush on there. For those light colors. And if I make my airbrush bigger, like that. And then if I come up here to the lamp, make another layer, also make this a clipping mask and make this one overlay. Then I can also just do some nice lighting effects on this lamp. Get a little smaller in here, let this light wrap behind there. Maybe hit the edges of that like that. It's kind of cool. If we zoom out, starting to get a little bit of the effect. And then I'm going to show you one more thing, and then we're going to call it quits for today because we've been at this for almost an hour. And one more really cool thing. So if I come up and make a layer on top of the flame, and then make it add or glow, take my airbrush and make it really big. And just hit it once. Make it a little bit bigger, hit it twice. It's really a cool way to create a glow effect. And you're like, that's a little overkill. So what I'm going to do is just bring the transparency down. Wow, wow, wow. It's kind of cool. And it just creates a little bit of atmosphere and glow. And so I'm not done with this, but I think this is a good indication of what you can do and how you can paint. And again, this is very similar to Photoshop, but this is Clip Studio Paint. And hey, that was super fun. Let's see. I just want to come back to, oh, right here. Hey, thanks for being with me today. Super fun. That hour went by so fast, I can't even believe it. We got a little bit of painting done. For those of you who are with me, Heidi, it was great to have you with me the whole time. For those of you who are watching this later on, I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, I'm the Art Pastor, and I do what I do because I love exploring spirituality and scripture through visual art and creativity. And sometimes I just like to paint with you. This is my project, and I do everything I do so that we can grow deeper in the love of God through Jesus Christ in the power of the Holy Spirit for the sake of the world. So thanks for